Welcome, all you wiretappers out there. Good to be back here in the studio, Gangland Wire. Retired Kansas City Police Intelligence Detective Gary Jenkins here, and I have a really interesting, different sort of an interview. We've got a man from Sicily. I started noticing this man on our podcast page, Gangland Wire Podcast, was posting, and he has a book that he's written, and it tells about his life, both in Sicily and when he came over. And when he came over, his family ended up, getting jobs and being around some of the Bonanno family. So he has a lot of experiences with this from, shall we say, from the from not really from the associate side, not even associate, more like from just somebody that lived in the neighborhood and people that had to do business with mob guys and with his roots in Sicily. So his name is Jack Amato. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you for getting me to your show.
All right.
Inviting me to your show.
Well, I'm really anxious to have you now. A Father's Belief, Part One. That's the name of your book, correct?
Yes, yes,
All right, and you can get that on Amazon, I believe, can't you?
yes.
Let's move along.
Okay.
In this next segment, let's move along to your life in the United States. And as your father, he had a restaurant and there were mafia around, and they had the lunch wagon business, and so as you grew up and grew into that, and those people were in your life, let's talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So
Like I said, we were in Brooklyn working the longshoreman. My father was working there, and my schooling, I didn't make it through junior high school. So my father wanted to get us out of there. So, but he wanted us to go in the pizza business. That was the thing for immigrants to go into,
yeah,
make pizza.
yeah,
That was a big deal. So we learned to make the pizza, me and my brothers. And my father, with the help of my older brother, because he already was in America, he knew his way around. We found this place that it was a luncheonette in Glendale with a house, for us to live in, and we bought that house, and we took over the luncheonette. There's a story in my book about the transaction. And like I said, there was a pizzeria 2 blocks away, not even block and a half. And they were doing good. They were the only ones there. There was Sicilian too. And they were related to the Gambinos.
okay,
Okay. And but we bought that luncheonette, we're going to convert it into a pizza place, and keep the counter with the
yeah,
ice cream and the milkshakes, but have a pizzeria luncheonette. So when we started doing work to rebuild out, we got a visit from 2 guys. And actually, I ended up talking to them. I had broken English. My father didn't even speak English. My
yeah,
older brother, too. And they want to say, who's the owner here? Right? So I said, it's my father. It was family owned. Why? I asked why. I was already a tough guy. I was 15 now. I've been seeing it all, and I heard about being getting shaken down. That you got
yeah,
to pay protection money. Which I already learned that from being in Brooklyn with the Gallo brothers. I
yeah,
mean, I don't think they did that. I don't think they. I think they just did their own business, bookmaking, Sherlock. Any stolen goods from the ship. The longshoremen. Stolen goods. There was no drugs really that I could say heroin. No, it was a big thing was the numbers shy and selling stolen goods. And that was it.
mhm,
You know, And if somebody else wanted a favor or something, they pay for the favor. That's how they made money, you know. So I was familiar with that. So anyway, so my father does not speak English. So what's the problem? So he says, well, you got to bring your father here, before they talk to me. You says you could translate. So I called my father and I told him, I said, these guys, I want to talk. And he said, you can open up a pizzeria here because there's a pizzeria here, So it started a little conversion. My father took the guy and threw him out. He grabbed him by the arm and he squeezed him. He was a fisherman. He rode the boats, I mean, he was strong. He was not, he could hurt you by just squeezing his hand. So he says, go take a walk, and throw him out. And the guys are like, they couldn't understand.
I bet.
They left. So my father reached out and he went to the other pizzeria, right to the guy's place, on a Friday night when they're busy.
Uh-huh.
I learned. And he told the guy, he says, listen, people came to my place, they mentioned your name, we should not open a pizzeria. And the guy goes, I don't know nothing about it. I don't know nothing about it. So my father told him, okay, I'll tell you something about it. Anything happens to my place, I'm going to come here and put you in the oven.
Oh,
straight out.
In the oven.
I put you right in the oven. So but my father didn't go alone. He took a couple guys with him, longshoremen. And right away, my father didn't wait for anything to happen. He reached out for the wise guys, which in the area, 18th Avenue, Williamsburg, there's a lot of paisans over there. I want to know if anybody knew this pizzeria. So sure enough, they find out what it would belong to. And they came and the people that were involved with the guy, came and apologized. Or it was a misunderstanding, blah, 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 blah. And that was it. And that was the first experience I got seeing my father in action. The second action I seen him, there was a group of bad boys, I guess, in the neighborhood. They go drinking, the bars, then come in on weekends. We had a jukebox where you split the money with the guy who gives you the jukebox. And they would come in, play jukebox, start dancing in the place, and they used to get out of here. So one night, my father he told me, who's the tough guy here? Who's the leader? So there was the other kids working. He says, he's the leader, they pinpoint him. So my father one day he was in the kitchen, like I said, he had his friends too, from the other side, from Meadow. So, and he wanted to teach this kid, a lesson. So they were making mess out of the pizzeria, and my father came out and said, pick it up, because they were throwing napkins, dishes, and the guy started making his hands like, cool, But that my father went crazy, He grabbed him by the throat, and pulled out a knife and put it in his neck. Like, well, and the other guys, and he's telling him in Sicilian, I kill you, Amato, I kill you. You don't do this here. This is my house, Anyway, they became good friends after that. There was no more trouble.
Your father had reached out to somebody when he first got this threat from the other pizza place.
Right.
And so he reached out to somebody to start asking about, who were they? Were they connected? Now, who did he reach out to? Do you remember who that was?
Well, there was coffee shops, people from the town, Carini. There was a residence there, and they knew, how do you say, the Gambino was next door neighbor for my town, Torretta. Okay. It was like a 15 minutes away.
Okay.
So we knew the Gambinos from Sicily.
All right, I got you now.
Okay, so that's how it reached out. But Carlo Gambino was American. He came in America like me, a young kid.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
He
what you
was in
mean.
America. He was American. It was a what do you call from Sicily. He became Carlo Gambino, the boss over here in America. So same thing with Joe Bonanno. A lot of these guys, they came my age. You know, they develop to make money. At that time, there was the liquor, right? The liquor. I mean, the wine, the liquor, right? Contraband.
Yeah, the prohibition was going on.
Prohibition, right.
He wasn't really reaching out to anybody who he knew was in the mafia, but he reached out to other people he knew from his area in Sicily that had been there for a while to find out who am I dealing with. And then he finds out he's not dealing with anybody that's going to come back and kill him and burn him out. It sounds to me like he figured out who they were.
Right, because he already knew that he told the guy from the pizza place, the name of the place was Glendale Pizzeria. He told the guy, if anything happens to my place or my kids, I'm going to come here and put you in the oven.
Okay, all right.
I don't care who does it, who it is. I'm holding you responsible.
So that's all over now. That's all over. Like you don't hear anything back from them. They even come and apologize for whatever reason.
My father went away. He wanted to show that he was serious. So
yeah,
when he heard that he was related with the Gambinos, he put a word with his paisans to find out who this guy's really connected with.
Okay.
Okay. And it turned out to be that he was married to one of the cousins from the Gambino.
Okay.
No affiliation with the mafia. Just they were using their name.
I got you.
So that's how it came to an end.
All right. I'm sorry. I just needed to straighten that out in my own mind. Your father's a tough dude, and he runs a good place, and there's no hanky panky, and there's no young kids doing anything wrong. Or we talked about the lunch wagon business and Joe Massino and Rastelli and all that. So where does that come in here with the lunch wagon business?
Okay. Well, what happened is I came of age, 20 years old. And I found a girl I was in love with. I was working 7 days a week and weekends. And I didn't want to do it no more. I wanted to spend time with my girl. I wanted to take her out. Because we were working all the time. So I said that I don't want to do this no more. I'm too young. So what happened was the girl that I met, she was related to Joe Massino, Salvatali. Salvatali was the bloodline. In other words, her mother and Salvatali are brothers and sisters. And Joe Massino was married to one of the sisters. And he had the catering business. Just a wagon. That's all he had. He was working with the wagon. I asked them, if there's a wagon, I could buy it. Now, Sal got into it first with the business. He found a wagon for Salvatore to buy. So he bought it first. I bought it second. So we were like family. We were in there.
And Sal Batali, and he was a brother-in-law to Joe Massino.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But Salvatore was my mother-in-law's brother.
Okay.
So my wife is niece, blood niece.
All right, I got you. Okay. So you guys are running lunch wagons, and Joe Massino has a catering business.
Not yet.
Not yet.
He bought it soon afterwards. He bought a JJ, what they call it, JJ Catering, JJ, deli. In Maspeth, in the factories, and that's where the story starts.
Yeah.
The wagons we will load up from Easy Load. It was called Easy Load, where we get the milk, all the everybody will come there, the danishes, the milk, the soda, the ice. Okay. There's a load up place for the coffee trucks. So 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, we all lined up there to get our product, and then everybody dispatched to go to the factory, the territory. Mm-hmm. That was unionized by Rastelli.
Yeah, Rastelli had already formed this organization.
Yeah.
And he ran this Easy Load place.
He didn't run it. He was the boss.
He was the boss. Yeah.
His brothers
ran.
There was a Marty, Louis, Rastelli.
Okay.
The other brother, Carmine, worked with the Islanders, what do you call it? He was in the union. He was doing something else.
Okay. But then they sold you the product that you then went out, but you had a certain area, certain factories that you serviced.
Yes.
And then you resold the product and kept the profit, and then came back and bought it from him again.
My truck was mine. I bought the truck with the row. We call it row.
A row.
I don't know. I've been hearing the roach. I never heard of that.
Roach wagon, yeah. They call
I never heard of that.
Right? Well, that's a derogatory term for.
Okay, I don't know. I used to think we were gypsy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're like a gypsy. Yeah. My head. I never heard of a roach, but they call it roach. People were happy.
Yeah.
You know, we go there, bring them coffee, lunch. You could stop in a gas station too. You know, and the guy was, oh, can I get something? Can I get what you getting gas? You know, to get hot coffee, hot chocolate, you know, everything. Mm-hmm. Sandwich, hot and cold. Everything was going good. My relationship with Joe Massino. You know, we were like family. But then I got very close to Marty Rastelli. That's the boss's brother.
Mm-hmm. Marty.
And he got to like me a lot. You know, then his brother Lou got to like me too. Then the nephew Lou, which was named after his father, he was like a son to Rastelli. You know, Phil Rastelli, because Phil never had a son. He was always in jail, so he never had a family. So that was his protege, for instance. You know, his son. Mm-hmm. So he loved that kid, you know. But he was a kid. He was 5 years older than me. I was 20, he was 25. Already married. So we got along very good. Being that he had this JJ Deli, you know, we bought sandwiches from him. So Rusty helped him. So all the trucks would go buy sandwiches from him. You know, so maybe he was getting kickbacks. I don't know. But a lot of stolen goods were going through that process. Mm-hmm. So everybody would get products, cigarettes, you know, with a stand selling cigarettes, stolen goods. You know, could have been anything. We were selling in the truck, pick up numbers, take a bookmaking action. Mm-hmm. So everybody was making money, you know.
So all the drivers had an opportunity as you'd pick up your milk and coffee and all that. At one place, you'd go to Joe Massino's to get the sandwiches. He was making up the sandwiches. He had people making sandwiches. Yes. And then was it at Joe Massino's that then if you wanted to pick up parlay cards for sports booking or extra cigarettes that were stolen cigarettes, untaxed cigarettes, or whatever, if somebody had a load of the calculators or whatever they happened to have, maybe you had some clothes, had some coats that somebody had gotten taken a shipment off the docks and got a bunch of coats, men's coats or something. And you'd throw them on the truck, you'd hit your stops, and then you had these other items to sell. Is that kind of how that worked?
Yes. Joe became a fence for all the wise guys.
All right.
He was the fence. People would go bring stuff to him, and he would give it out to the drivers because everybody wants to make a buck.
Yeah,
You
I
know, there
understand.
was no killing, there was no stealing.
Yeah.
It was you would sell product, whatever it is. It could be a jacket, could be a coat, a jogging suit, sneakers, shoes. You know, and that was it. You know, so Joe was. It became very important to some people because he was the fence.
Yeah. And
So
I'm always curious exactly how these things worked.
good.
Did you buy that? For example, you had 5 cartons of cigarettes. Did you buy those cigarettes from him for, say half what you might sell them for and then sell them for retail? Or did he just give them to you and you brought him all the money back for the stolen property, then he gave you some of that? How did that work?
Well, you work on a percentage.
Okay,
So
percentage.
in other words, yeah. So they give you 100 cartons of cigarettes, right? We used to say like $2 a pop.
Yeah.
$2 a carton. Then you could sell it whatever you want for, but you had to pay him back his $2 that he wanted for each carton.
Okay.
So if it was 100 carton, you owe him $200. All
right.
And then if you sold it for $3, you made $100. So you made.
Okay.
But that stuff was moving so fast.
Yeah.
Before you got it, people buy it because it was cheap.
Yeah.
There were cigarettes without a stamp. We're bringing it from North Carolina or whatever, Virginia. And so everybody was happy. And Joe got very, how do you say, moved up in that league because he had that J.J. Deli, and meanwhile, I found him very not trustworthy. He wasn't like a Sicilian guy. He was more American, but third descent, third generation.
Interesting. Was there something that he did, or did you just watch, how he dealt with people that caused you to distrust him?
Yeah, the thing was that he always badmouthed his brother-in-law Sal.
Okay.
Because Sal, he had 3 sisters, and his mother, which would be Joe Massino's mother-in-law, adored Sal. Spoil him, like he's the boy in the family, and and he was always used to say, "I didn't come that way." My mother didn't give me shit. My mother never gave me anything. So so I used to put it always. How could you? He loves you like a brother, right? He's got no brothers. He's got sisters, right? He does anything for you, and you need a guy like him, really, because he was dedicated. He loved the life. Become a mafioso, because he came from Sicily too. His father, he was born here.
Yeah, but his Sal's father was born in Sicily.
Yeah, the whole sisters too. So they came from San Giuseppe. Like near Monte Caleone. They were from the mountain, so they were like more familiar with that kind of mafia. But they were good people. They were not bad people. I mean, you got guys that just like to show how tough they are, killing people because you give them the wrong look or said the wrong thing, And most of the guys like that don't last, because they're not wanted. You gotta be a good guy. You gotta help the people, not hurt the people.
Yeah.
You protect them. That was the true mafiosi. You protect. You're the hero. You're not the. That's how I came. That's where I came from.
Yeah. So Joe Massino was much more Americanized and much more about business, and you could tell that by just how he conducted himself. Is that what I hear you say?
Yes. The only thing he liked to steal and badmouth whoever he thought he could badmouth. So to me, I wasn't. It didn't excite me. The way he could badmouth his brother-in-law, he's going to badmouth me.
Yeah.
So anyway, to move on with the story with the wagon, I got close to Marty, and I got close with Rastelli too, because when he came home from prison, there was a war between Galante, not really a war, who was going to be the boss between Galante and Rastelli, okay, because they were both appointed to run the family. Once Joe Bonanno left for Arizona, somebody else was put on. The guy died, and these guys were working under Joe Bonanno. Joe Bonanno was the boss. They say he ran away, did this, he did that. The government puts out a lot of things that even today you see the news people, right?
Yeah.
They put out a lot of stuff that you don't even know if you're coming or going.
Yeah.
You believe what you watch on CNN, you watch over here. So that's what was going on. A lot of these people don't understand the true what happened.
Yeah.
And when Joe Bonanno was in Arizona, he retired. He didn't care about New York anymore, because he wanted to go to Vegas, own a casino in Vegas.
Yeah.
He was already in Canada with the heroin.
Yeah.
Rizzuto. Phil Rizzuto, you heard of him?
Vito Rizzuto from
Rizzuto,
Montreal,
right.
yes.
Yeah. That was his people.
Yeah.
So he didn't need New York no more. He knew New York was the time, used to call it, I guess, and people say it's like an atomic bomb. Anytime it could explode.
Yeah.
I see. And it still happens today, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not like it used to be then,
So
with the Rico.
Let me interject just a minute here for you guys. He mentioned Galante. There's a man named Carmine Galante,
yes,
who had come up in the Bonanno organization, and he wanted to deal heroin, and it was like Bonanno wanted to deal heroin, and it was all coming through Canada, and that was his thing. He comes back out of prison during this time, around this time that Jack's talking about, and he just says, "I'm the boss of the Bonanno family," and Rusty Rastelli's out here, who Jack is connected to. Most people want Rusty Rastelli to be the boss. They don't really want Carmine Galante to be the boss. So that's kind of where we are, guys.
You got it. You said it right.
Yes. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I kept my distance going through I would just pick up my sandwich and go, but I would be hanging out with Marty. It was another fellow called Tommy D, young guy that was like very close to them, related. So he became my friend, close friend. And we would go play cards by Marty. There was another guy who was a 400-pound Disty. His name was Disty, 400-pound guy. Yeah, it was like the enforcer with the coffee truck.
Yeah.
This guy would come to you and tell you, hey, you got to pay your dues. What do? You pay your dues. So, and then it was another guy, and then we used to hang out with Marty. And Phil Rastelli liked that. And Phil Rastelli told me, I'm not going to be around too much, but help my brother out if you need you to drive him somewhere, go somewhere. And that was the relationship built out, So now, matter of fact, one day he was stuck in Easy Loan. His brother was supposed to come and pick him up. His brother Carmine was supposed to come in. They were supposed to go to pick up his car because he was getting clean. He just came home from being away, jail.
Mm-hmm.
So he was stuck there. Nobody was there. Everybody was afraid to go near him because there was this conflict with the Galante group, right? And Joe Massino didn't know which way to go then. Because the other guys he says he's the boss, and the other guy says he's the boss. Yeah. So you don't know which way to go. So I seen him, he was stranded. And I said to him, Where you got to go? I take you. He looked at me, said, no, thank you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. He knows I was close already to his brothers. He didn't want him to get me involved.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
He was trying to be, said, go home, go home. I said, no, I take you, So he says, go home, kid, I said, I'm going to take no for an answer. I want to take you. I drive you. So he thought about it. He's looking at his watch. All right. So I took him. And I took him to Astoria, where his car's at. So he was getting his car. But in the car, he seemed like to know about me. He knew about my father, And he tells me, don't trust nobody. Don't step on nobody's toe. Just be good. Don't try to be like some of these assholes, run around like with no brain and do stupid things. Look at me. I'm in jail for all my life, right? And so what I accomplished, I got no kids, I got no family, right? The only thing I know is being a mobster, That's it, So I'm looking at him and go, you're the boss, you know what I'm saying? You're the boss. But he didn't think that he was happy with, the life he spent all his life. So we had a good relationship. So with that, the word got out that I took Phil to a ride. Joe Massino finds out. The other guy finds out. So there was like a little bit jealousy, When Rastelli one day came to JJK Deli, with his brother Carmine, because his brothers always drove him. He didn't have no strangers, always his brothers. He traveled alone, but he traveled with his brothers. Never bodyguard, always family. So he parked. He gives me the key to go park his car in front of all these wise guys. So I went to park the car, come back in. Everybody's looking at me, like, what is it? So there was a lot of envious after that, because any parties, anything, I'd be sitting at the head of the table with the Rastelli. So that was a big resentment from Joe. Joe wasn't too happy about that, because he probably knows how people move up in the ladder.
Yeah.
So as days go by, I get flat tires. With my car, I'm getting the sandwich. I go back outside. I get flat tires. I was doing good. I bought myself a Trans Am 1974 with the Eagle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember those.
I read one. I bought
hot,
it.
Man, hot.
Who the hell is this kid? That's it. All the guys with the trucks, they were like, who the fuck? They will say greaseball. Yeah. They won't call me Zip.
They didn't.
But not in my face.
Yeah.
Because one time, this fat guy, big guy, you're a greaseball. He said it. That's who you call a greaseball. So he's the fat guy. So I said, you could be big all you want. I get a left pipe. I hit you in the head. I'm faster than you. I'm going to get you. He blew his mind.
It brings up a question. You mentioned the term zip. Did you hear that term much? That's what Carmine Galante, he brought people over, Cesar Amato, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Baldo Amato and other people from Sicily, and everybody in America called them zip. So did you hear that much?
Yeah, one day I heard that word zip, but because most of them were from the Naples. After Joe Bonanno left, Paul Castellano got killed. They were more Neapolitan. The heads of the family became almost Neapolitan.
Oh, really?
They wanted to push the Sicilians out.
Uh-huh.
But that was going through since the 30s. There was always the conflict between the Napolitans and the Sicilians, the Camorra. You ever heard of the Camorra?
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Okay. So there was always, who's going to be the power. So, but after Paul Castellano died, most of them were Neapolitan.
Yeah.
So they started using.
Gotti was a Neapolitan, so interesting.
Yes. And they started using this word zip. So I think Joe Massino he says, "You're a zip," when we're having a conversation. I said, "Zip for my pocket." I put my hand in my zip of my pants. It's a zip. I'm gonna open the zip, and he didn't like that.
Yeah.
He freaked out. They grabbed me, and because he always had guys, and they put a machete in my neck.
Ooh.
I said, "Go ahead, do it. If it makes you feel good, do it." What'd I do? My zip, they were trying to intimidate me.
Uh-huh.
But I stood my grounds, and actually I pushed them. They thought I was sick. I was crazy.
Yeah.
Like my father, he was crazy.
Right. They didn't know your father when they started pushing you, did they?
Oh yeah, well, then with the launch wagon. See, that's when I met with this guy Tommy D. I would go play cards up a Maspeth. It was a blackjack game.
Mm-hmm.
It was run by, I don't know if it was from the Genovese family or it was from the Gambino. It was a blackjack game that was like all the wise guys would go there play, and they would play blackjack, but they up to $100 limit that you could bet. At that time, $100 was like $1,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Right. So, but that's where I met John Gotti. I met Fritzi Giovanelli, Carmine Tutti, Franchise. You heard that name, Franchise.
Franchise. Yeah.
Right. It's related to the guy who does podcasts.
Yeah, the bud Michael Franchise.
Yeah. Now he became a priest and everything, but
yeah.
And what happened to the priesthood? I thought he was becoming a priest. Now he's in a podcast. You know what I mean? Everything is about money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, right.
So, hey, listen, whatever it's good for you, do it. But don't go out talk about other people. When you're doing something that you say you changed, but you didn't change, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I met all these guys.
Yeah.
Now, one of my stops, there was people from jail go to work. It was a rebuilt phones.
Uh-huh.
Used phones that revarnish. What's the word I'm looking for? Recycle.
Recycle, yeah.
Right. And there used to be people from jail come do this work. Mm-hmm. And there used to be a paymaster that would cash the checks, come in with the suitcase money and cash the check. Now, the word was out that this guy could carry maybe $100,000 in cash. Mm. That was one of my stops. They came to rob this guy. I ended up getting shot in my stomach. Now, we don't know if it was a coincidence or was done on purpose because it was people from the trucks. So I almost lost my life. I was out of business for a while because I had to regroup. That's when I started saying, hey, I got to be my own man. I got to, and I got to back in the business with the pizzeria. But meantime, I was going to all these clubs. The other John Gotti, I played cards with him. I played, I made myself respected. Joe never liked that. Mm-hmm. What are you doing over there? What are you doing with this? Tony Mira, for instance, we were friends.
Oh, really? say he was a
But
bad man. He was
they're all bad. They're all
one
bad.
tough dude.
Depends. There was a lot of bad guys.
Yeah.
Bad guys.
There was
But
a lot of bad guys. He was just one of many bad guys, I guess.
right, there's a lot of guys.
Okay.
But I didn't do nothing with him. We just play cards.
Yeah.
We play cards. Hey, well, we were like from Sicily too, Sicilians. I ended up meeting Baldo Amato. I ended up meeting
Cesar Bonaventura.
Yeah.
Bonaventura. He was the other.
Yeah, he was the guy. He was the head guy. I met Carolano. They invited me to go to the club, Costella Marese. That's where Knickerbocker. They invited me. They actually wanted to buy my pizzeria. First they wanted me to get involved with them.
Yeah.
I said, no, I got to get out. I can't do this.
Well, that was kind of my next question, the pizza connection. And these guys are, they were the genesis really of the pizza connection. And on Knickerbocker Avenue, I think that's where they started with the first.
That's where they were.
Yeah.
That was the location.
And then they started building out from there with pizza places clear out to Illinois, really, and down to Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. And a lot of that whole pizza connection deal. Now, you were asked to join in with that, with your pizza place, to help with that.
Yes, they came in, but see, there's so many stories about what happened to me. When I was in the pizza place, I was willing and dealing in the pizzeria too, because all the Irish kids, the German kids, behind in Glendale, there should be the railroad, and there's a lot of goods coming through there.
Oh, I see.
Is that, and the Irish kids used to go steal there, they rob them, and they used to come to me to buy. I became the fence.
Okay.
A fence with the Irish kids and the German kids, and that's how we became very close. Then they would bring cigarettes in. So I had my own thing going. Now, the pizzeria, the Cesare Bonaventure and the Baldo Amato, they came to my place, pizza, and they were saying, we that's how they were doing it. They were doing it that they want to unionize the pizzerias, to make a union, like Colombo did with the
the
Columbus Day.
Italian American.
But these guys, they wanted to push the drugs.
Yeah.
They wanted to push the heroin to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I said, no, because an incident happened before that somebody snitched on me. That I had guns in there in the pizzeria. I had drugs. So they come and raid my place. But they didn't find anything. They didn't find shells, holsters, because I had given the weapons I had given to Marty because they were fighting. So I said, I don't need these weapons. Yeah, so I gave it because I bought them from the kids. They were stealing, So I was lucky there. Couldn't find nothing.
You were.
Yeah, it was lucky. So with that excuse, when I went to meet Cesare Bonaventure and Baldo, and they wanted me to get involved, I said, I just got raided. They were looking for drugs. They were looking for this. I'm under the nose.
Yeah.
I got to sell my pizzeria because I'm done, over here. Because of the business now started going down. Can you imagine an Italian guy in a German neighborhood? He got raided. It's the word gets out. That's it. There was times for me to move out, and I went to live in Lindenwood. The house stood with us. We didn't sell the house. I sold the pizzeria. My father already went back to Italy, Sicily. He retired. So now I was on my own. Playing cards. I got involved with people for East New York. I started hanging out with them, which they belonged to the Gambino. And I was doing good there. So Joe Massino finds out. And he put the word out. Now he's already made. He's already a made guy. And he tells the people that I belong to him. My nephew doesn't belong there. He belongs to us. So they got caught. I was doing good there. We were running the gambling, fireworks, the numbers. I was making money, and they loved me. Like they liked me a lot. They were not Neapolitan,
I see.
but they loved me, and other people too. Fritzi Giovanelli too. I got along with him too. The other guys I'm not mentioning because they're still around. So they're still. So I was doing good, and every time I tried to do good, there was a stop. He would claim me, but I didn't want no part of him. I was close with the Rastellis, and being close to the Rastelli, it was like me having a butt. I'm like a mad guy.
Yeah.
I'm with the boss. I'm not with Joe Blow that he's just being made. As a soldier, I was sitting with the bosses. So, but I always knew not to step on nobody's toe. You know what that means? Go into his territory, do business, or disrespect anybody. And I did my own thing. And then what happened was it's a lot of things in the book. I mean,
we can't tell everything's in the book. We want people to buy the book.
You like this, huh? Anyway, so I was, I got out of the pizzeria and opened up what you call a JC Maintenance.
What was that? A JC
Maintenance.
Maintenance. JC maintenance. Cleaning offices and.
Yeah. And I was paying taxes and doing my thing, and I did that for a good time. Then I got involved with investor money and Jewish guys, jewelry. So I was doing good, so I didn't need Joe Massino. But I always thought that I couldn't do too much while I lived in Queens.
Yeah, I understand.
So I moved out and went to Long Island. Now we're talking about that's the 80s. So we're there from the 70s now to the 80s. And I was doing good. I was moving Suffolk County, Nassau County. I was bookmaking, I didn't like Shylock. I tried it. So one day, one guy owed money, and because of bookmaking, you want to turn it into shy. A lot of guys, that's what they do. They bang you up. You can't pay. They start shy money. I couldn't do it because one time I went to somebody's house, to try to collect money, and the wife is crying. We got no money for the milk.
Yeah.
I felt like dirt, I'm taking away milk from the baby.
Yeah. You're not going to be the hero there, are you?
No. So I got very sentimental. I said, that's not my kind of thing. So I just stuck with bookmaking, gave everybody limits, and invest money, with business. But I got right out by Joe Massino and bust my operation in Nassau County. And I was lucky because I had 12 guys under me. That there was the train in Gun City. I don't know if you remember the black guy shooting down all the people.
Oh, and Long Island Railroad. I do remember something about that. Yeah, he shot a bunch of people on the train.
Yes, it was the same day that happened.
Yeah.
That I got busted with 12 guys. So in Nassau County, it was an open territory. All the mafiosi stood away from Nassau County and Suffolk because the laws are hard. They put you in jail.
They didn't have any connections over there either.
Right. So then they didn't fool around. So I went there because I figured it's an open country. I'd rather deal with the law Then real with this.
Joe Massino.
Oh yeah, it was yes.
Was Joe wanting money from you? And if he learned you were making money, did he expect you to give him some?
He never knew much about what I was doing.
Okay.
He always asked questions. What is he doing? Because I had my operation in Long Island, so he didn't have. But then he got the hook, and that's when I got busted, with the bookmaking.
Yeah.
And they didn't give me jail time because there was never no violence.
Yeah.
I only did bookmaking. Then I got to pay the fines. That was it. They gave me probation, a misdemeanor, but there was no violence, never threatened anybody. So I was a good guy.
Yeah.
But don't mess with me, though, if you want to be.
I got it. I won't. I understand.
The people.
Yeah.
You're giving them a service. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And that's was my thing,
Interesting.
and then I opened up a restaurant. It's called Amici in Gun City, Franklin Square. I had it for 20 years there. I kept it up with the bookmaking. I got busted there because some of the associates that would infiltrate my business that belonged to Joe. They came to my restaurant. They became friends. So we were doing business together. There was a wire recording from Brooklyn, from Maspeth to the club. I would go on the phones and call from the street phones.
Mm-hmm.
I would never call from the house or something. So anyway, I got hooked up with the organized crime. Spiro.
Anthony Spiro, yeah.
They picked him up. They picked everybody up, about 20 guys. I had nothing to do with them, but they had me as the bookmaker, edging off business. So right away they threw me in with the group.
Mm-hmm.
So they came to my home, and lucky at the time I had the guns, I had a permit. I had the permit because I took shooting. Because that's the only way you could have a life. I always had a clean record. I was not a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So when they arrest me, the feds will say, you face 40 years.
Oh.
I said, what?
Yeah.
Says, yeah.
For bookmaking? I don't think so.
Right, but they had the other guy with slot machines, attempted murder. There was a lot of charges.
Was this part of a RICO case then on Anthony Spiro?
No, I don't think it was a RICO case. It was they was bringing in this slot machines from our side, state to state.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and supposedly he was being accused of murder. I don't know if it was that guy that they killed from 18th Avenue. What was that?
I can't remember.
I can't think of it right now. Anyway, they were trying to connect him with the murder, but everybody else was part of the conspiracy of the organization, and I'm part of it. Yeah. Then they bring in this charge from Nassau County, the bookmaking.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't operated there by yourself. You can't do that. So I was surrounded by, the head of the FBI or the Bonanno crime family, and they want me to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, listen, I've been a bookmaker all this period and a businessman. Okay? So I got nothing to do with that guy. Never. I said, if you got proof for me, show me where you could connect me with them. I never went to clubs, in other words, the club,
the social club.
The social clubs.
Yeah, like the Raven Night or.
Yeah. I never went. I went to Raven Night when I played with John Gotti, but that was in the early years. Then I stood away too. That's another story of my book. What happened there playing cards. But there's a lot of incidents. I'm just giving you my independency where I moved along and try to stay away from that. And but I always stood close with the Rastelli. So Rastelli died. I went to the funeral, and that's when they became the superpower, Salvatore, Spiro. Joe was in jail at that time. He was but Phil Rastelli, his name was Spiro. Anthony Spiro was his guy. He was the real power. And then with Salvatore, they were good together. They brought back the family. And then John Gotti liked Sal, liked Spiro. He was starting to lose respect for Joe. I don't know why, but they were not that close. When they say he went back in the commission, it wasn't because of Joe. Joe was in jail. It was Spiro and Sal that ran the Stevo. There was a lot of good guys that I liked, and they were moving good. Even Vinny Herschel, Vinny Osaro.
Okay.
The guy for Lufthansa.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I got you. I remember now.
Okay. He was another guy. He was a tough guy. He was a good guy. He didn't do nothing like some other people do. He was Omerta. He was a real mafioso. And so was Carmine Tutti Francesi. I did something for him. You want to hear this one?
Okay, one last story. And we don't want to go.
There's a lot of stories.
I know. We don't want to give them all away, Jack. Okay. So let's have one.
Let me give you this story. The guy liked me a lot. Somebody went up to the family. That's the Colombo. They wanted to kill one of the partners. And they were going to pay a lot of money because the guy wanted to take over the company. That was a contract murder. They asked Carmine to set up a sting, which was a sting. You know what am I saying it right? Sting.
Yeah, if they were gonna make it
look like they killed somebody.
They killed somebody, yeah.
Right, for the money, because the guys was being greedy, wanted to kill his partner to take over the company. So that's how bad people are. Some people they go through the mafia guy, a mafiosi, to set up a contract to kill their partners. This way they could take the partner. So they told them they're not interested. They kept insisting, come on, give you 100,000, give you 100,000. So they played this thing. I played the dead guy in the trunk with blood all over. I played the guy in the trunk, right?
Yeah. They take a picture
blood
of
all
you?
over. No, I was in the trunk.
Yeah, but did they take a picture of you and then show it to the guy to
collect? No. The guy wanted to see the body.
Oh, you had to lay there and pretend like you were dead?
Well, it was full of blood.
Businessman came and checked it. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, the guy goes, I want to see his face. He goes, I chopped him up with a hack. Give me my money. Give me my money. So he got his money.
Oh, wow.
We walked away. And he's going to me, this motherfucker, he says he wanted us to be killers. What, we kill for money? Fuck him. Wait till tomorrow. Wait till tomorrow. His partner walks in to come to work. That was, and Kamal never forgot. I was his best friend. The operation was good. Sal wanted to do it. Salvatore. But he got turned down. So he wanted to play the dead body. But Carmine chose me. And there was a lot of other I'm saying there's a lot of stories. I'm here, they're not here. Put it this way, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I wrote all this thing, but I wrote it myself because I was trying to get a journalist to write it.
Uh-huh.
The journalist was working for the New York Times, like Capesi.
Yeah.
He was talking about the mob. And
Jerry Capisci, yeah.
Yeah, but I tried to reach him. Then I got to reach, I reach another guy. He says, I write the story. It's going to cost you $40,000. And there's no guarantee. You know, it's going to sell.
Yeah.
You know, who am I? I'm a nobody. You know, these guys have become famous because they're bad guys, you know?
Yeah.
You know, that's how they get reputation. So then I said, you know what? Maybe I'll write it myself. So I wrote it and I gave it to this company, Ex Libre. You ever heard of them?
Yeah, I have heard of them. Yeah.
Publishing company. But they didn't fix it.
Yeah.
They didn't do a lot of editing. So when I got the book, I wasn't too happy about it. And then I redid, you know, you got the book, right?
Yeah.
You know, this one. And then I wrote a follow up. You see it?
I got you.
And then I got another one. It's translated in Italian. You know, because I wanted to get the people from my town. But I had a professor, actual professor from the government, from Pittsburgh. He worked, you know, with the mob. He put away a lot of people. And I told him a bit about my story. He says, you got a lot of good shit here. You know, because I had to give him a summary.
Yeah.
Because you got a lot of stuff here. He goes, but and that time it was going downhill, the mob thing.
Yeah. Now it's uphill. Now it's doing good.
Yeah, now it's going out. That's why I said now it's the time to do it.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I'm watching these guys all in the podcast talking about this, about that. I got stories that are real, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long story that I always said the Godfather movie was great.
Yeah.
You know, but it's even not real people, you know, not real story. There I am. I'm the real thing. It sounds to say
you are.
if anybody really could be the Godfather, it should be you. So I'm laughing. So I said, I got to do it. So, you know, I revived it, you know, with drama.
A little drama in it, add a little drama to it.
Yeah, all that. I did that. You know, did it. So I came out with this. So, but with the other book, I got 26 reviews, which was this one. This one was the original.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to be holy, like.
Yeah.
But see, and this was the original. It's a little smaller than that.
I see.
And nothing, you know, they didn't read this based on the true Sicilian. You know, they
just looked at the picture.
Right. But I got 26 reviews out of this that they like it. They like it. And they said, when are you going to write the second? You know. But then I threw it away because Joe Massino was still alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the other said, you know, I got, because then I moved down to Florida. That's where I am now. And I opened up a pizzeria here in Florida. I was here for 10 years, in business. And I got, they came in to check my books. It was amazing. And then the liquor, they set up one of my workers that sold the beer to underage person.
No, yeah.
Over here, right? They set it up. 2 licenses. One 18 and up, and then the other one 16. But they look like license. But one is supposed to be junior license, the other one license. And that's what happened. The guy gave the beer to this girl. It was during spring break.
Spring break, man, and he didn't have the regular license. He had the junior license.
Yeah, we got ready like. Like, what the hell with this? So then I said,
Here's a guy like you, been connected to some of the most dangerous New York City mafia people in the world. And these cops down here in Florida busted you because one of your employees sold a beer, and it wasn't a regular, because it was an underage employee that wasn't supposed to sell the beer, sold the beer to the underage kid. That's crazy.
So it never ended,
They don't have enough to do. You still got a pizza place down there?
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if I went down there this winter, I'd stop by and see you.
I'm done. I'm retired now.
Good.
Now what I'm looking, it's the story. I think it's a good story. I mean, they did The Sopranos.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from New Jersey, where I got the thing from New York. The people. I got the good stuff.
Well,
so that's what I'm looking for.
You just keep doing what you're doing. You just keep getting your story out there. There'll be more people that'll want you on their podcast, especially after this comes out. I'm sure of that. I'll get calls. Matter of fact, I'll suggest you to a couple of people I know that have podcasts, and people will start getting you on their podcast, and because you have great stories. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I got guys that are just going to love this firsthand stuff, the real stuff.
Yes, Gary. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on, Jack. And I wish still had the pizza place. I'd stop by and eat some pizza this winter if I got down there.
I'm not. Now I'm trying to relax. Enjoy my grandchildren.
Yeah.
I hope nothing comes out of this. Maybe the feds are going to come in and say, "Oh."
The feds will come in and get you. Don't admit to any murders. No statute of limitations on murders.
Yeah, I know. But it was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to talk to you. Guys, that was a heck of a show. I tell you what, Jack is a cool guy. Like I said, I wish he really still had the pizza place down there. We'd all stop down there when we were going to Florida. But don't forget, I like to ride motorcycles. So watch out for motorcycles when you're out there on the streets. And if you have a problem with PTSD and you've been in the service, the VA website has a good hotline for that. And, alcohol and drug addiction goes right along with PTSD. And whether you've been in the service or not, you can get hold of former Gambino man, Anthony Ruggiano. He is a drug and alcohol counselor down there in Florida. And on his website and his YouTube page, he has a hotline. So give him a shot if you have a problem with drugs or alcohol. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and tell your friends about the podcast, and share it on your social media, and do all those kinds of things. And rest assured that I really like putting these out, and I really like getting these great mob stories like we had today, some really previously unknown mob stories. And he's got his books out there, A Father's Belief, and I'll have links to the Amazon page for those books. So look for his books. Thanks a lot, guys.